Hey everyone, welcome back to bageltcg. Today we're going to be doing a deck tech on my personal favorite hero, Bravo Showstopper. But before we get into that, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Whipped Wizard. You can use the affiliate link in the description to get great pricing on singles and support the channel. You can also support me on Patreon and get extra bonus videos as well as cool giveaways and other forms of bonus content. But let's hop right into the video here. We're going to be looking at Bravo Showstopper, a Welcome to Wraith hero that has gotten back in the meta with all the aggro decks running around. And he's just gotten a very strong disruptive package that has ended up positioning him pretty well. It's a bit of a surprise considering how bad he was in the previous meta. He's basically entirely outclassed by Bravo Star of the Show, his redoing in Everfest. But yeah, this is the OG Bravo Showstopper. It's kind of I wouldn't say control deck, I guess, because control I think of more blocking, but this deck is more almost aggressive in the sense, but it's disrupting your opponent. So it's going to deal less damage than a FAB, but it's going to make it so the FAB can deal way less damage as well. So the deck we're looking at today is actually almost identical to the deck that Kale McCreath brought to I think a 10-0 finish. I got first place at the Battle Harden in I think Auckland, somewhere in the Kiwi area. But yeah, so it's almost the same. I think 4 cards are different. Maybe something like 4 cards, something like that. Very similar though. The loadout here you can see at the top. We've got Bravo Showstopper, obviously with his ability to give dominate to cards that cost 3 or greater, and then his signature weapon here, Anathos, that if you have 2 cards with power or with cost, 3 or greater in your pitch zone, it gets +2 power. So a nice 6 power total weapon if you can get it the effect active. Otherwise, it's a 3 for 4, which is still fine. Our equipment suite is pretty much just blocking equipment. Crater Fist here. The effect is actually okay, but more often than not, I think in most games it's going to block for 2 and then block for 1 and be destroyed by Temper. We've got the new Crown of Providence. This card's amazing. Bravo has the problem where sometimes he'll have a hand that has too many reds in it, and this lets him get rid of one of those reds and get a new card. So really nice equipment. Unfortunately, Guardian does not have any kind of legs yet, so we are on Iron Rot legs, the very OG Welcome to Wraith common equipment. Just gives us 1 block on our legs, and then the signature chest piece as well. Tectonic plating here. Big part of the deck, right? It helps us turn on Anathos. It blocks for 3 total, 2 and then 1, and it's just great overall. Outside of that, we've got 3 Null Rune here. Everything except for our chest, because we want to always have Tectonic plating. And then we've got Time Skippers for the Prism matchup. Prism's probably the only really bad matchup for this deck, and it's almost unwinnable. It's probably like a 20 or 30% chance you win that matchup, but Time Skippers can definitely help us get that extra few percent in there and try to win that bad matchup. Let's look at the deck now. So the main 60 cards here, I have this kind of pre-boarded for FAB, because that's going to be one of the more common decks, and kind of pre-boarded for aggro in general. Viserai, Briar, and FAB are going to be pretty dominant decks right now. So you are going to notice that one of the main things missing is Crush the Weak, which is really good against FAB, but I think we'll see a little less FAB. And also, I don't think it's that important in the matchup. Kale also was not running any Crush the Weak, so we're not going to run any either. One card we are running that's really good is this Chokeslam card here. So Chokeslam, we're playing the blues and the reds. The reds are really powerful disruptive tool, coming in for 8 damage for the cost of 4. If you have a Seismic Surge, it can come in for only 3 resources, so just pitching a blue. And if it crushes, so if it crushes the keyword, it needs to deal 4 more damage. Attack action cards your opponent control can't gain power during their next action phase. So almost all of the aggro decks right now are abusing some form of power gain on their attack actions. So Briar, it's Channel Mount Heroic. Viserai is using a lot of Shrill of the Skull form, which gains 3 power. And then FAB is using a lot of Art of War, Spreading Flames, Phoenix Flames, stuff like that. So this is going to turn all of that off, and it can really dampen your opponent's turns for aggro decks. Our other big anti-aggro tool is Spinal Crush here. Obviously, turning off Go Again for your opponent, pretty amazing. So those are kind of our two premier anti-aggro tools for red Crush cards. Crippling Crush, obviously also pretty good, but it is pretty expensive at 7 resources, so usually you're going to have to maybe take some damage to be able to get this one off, unless they were already pretty disrupted. But Crippling Crush, while it is good against aggro decks, not as good as Spinal Crush just because it is so expensive. The one card we do have different is that Kale was running 3 Command and Conquer, but I just like Red Disable a little more. I maybe trust him because he went 10 and 0. But this is a little bit more of a budget option, especially Red Disable. Only a few cents a piece, while Command and Conquer, a place that's pretty expensive. But this does a similar job, and the main things is that you can dominate it with his hero ability, and it comes in for a lot more damage, right? So Command and Conquer comes in for 6. It costs 2. So you can't dominate with Bravo because it costs 1 too little. It doesn't pitch well to Anathos. It has a lot of anti-synergy with the deck. The thing carrying Command and Conquer is how powerful the card is individually. But I really like Red Disable, and I think there was another top 8 Bravo in that same event, and he was running Red Disable over Command and Conquer. So I really like it, and I think I just like the all Guardian cards type deck here, not running the Command and Conquers. We've got Red and Blue Pummel. This card's great. Obviously, getting your opponent to discard is awesome. Red Pummel is one of the best attack reactions in the game. And because it gives +4, even if your opponent completely blocks out one of your Crush cards, like if your aggro opponent blocks 9 on Spinal Crush here, you can still give it +4 with Pummel to get its effect off. We've got the classic defense reactions with Sink Below and Fate Foreseen. These are just nice 0 for 4s to block well. And then we've got a bunch of blues here. A lot of our blues are just big damage cards, like Cranial Crush here is 6 for 8. Thunderquake is 6 for 8. Macho Grande, 7 for 8. So a lot of big damage cards here. We've got some 4 for 6s with Buckling Blow and Debilitate. These are important for our sideboard card here, Zealous Belting, where you need to have a card in your pitch zone with power greater than it to have Go Again. So we want all of our blue attacks to have at least 6 power so they can make sure Zealous Belting has Go Again. Some other key cards, we've got Rouse the Ancients. This card's a really good card against decks like Prism, or just when we need to aggress. 7 Go Again for 3 is no joke, so very powerful card there. We've got Showtime and its new combo card, Imposing Visage. Imposing Visage is a great way to basically give Showtime Go Again. You pay 3 and then 3 extra because that's the X, so it's going to cost you 6 resources total, and then you get to put Showtime in play, and you'll have Go Again from Imposing Visage. So nice combo there, and gives us 6 ways to find Showtime if we go first to try to get a really nice setup turn. Then we've got the classics like Tear Asunder here and Staunch Response. So pretty solid main board package here. Looking at the sideboard, we've got 6 ways to help us gain Go Again, which is really important for Prism. We basically just have to kill her as fast as possible. And Go Again cards also like Enlightened Strike or Zealous Belting let us Go Again and use our weapon to actually attack an aura if necessary, while still hitting Prism for 5 damage. So pretty nice there. We've got 2 Pulverizes. This card's really great against any decks that go super tall, so against other Guardians, against Brute. There's a lot of decks that consistently play cards that have more than 4 power, and might be a bit slower, where you want these 2 Pulverizes to come in for 14 damage, which is already a ton of damage, and give your opponent's first attack -4. There's almost no way they can block 14, and even if they can, they don't have much of a turn anyways. So great card, especially against slower decks or decks that really have a lot of high power attacks. So like I said, Brute, other Guardians. It's even fine against Ranger sometimes because they can't use like a Kodachi to get rid of it. Not as good against aggro decks though that can do a lot of smaller attacks. And if they want to, they can just take this and then attack for 1 at the start of the chain or something like that. Our last sideboard card is Oasis Respite. This card has a few uses. I think it actually might be okay against Rune Blades, but I haven't had the chance to test it out yet too much. But if you're bringing in Arcane Barrier, if you're bringing in your Null Rune Boots here to stop the Rune Chants and stuff like that, Oasis Respite could be nice as well, because you can use it as one resource to negate all of Rosetta Thorn, and also gain you a life if you're less life. So it's really nice against Rosetta Thorn. It prevents all 4 damage that Rosetta Thorn would do. So maybe against those decks, but really it's great against Wizard. It lets you prevent 4 damage from Wizard. This is basically how you're going to beat Kano. Against Kano, you're just going to want to find your first Oasis Respite and then Arsenal it. And then whenever they try to do their Wildfire turn, you can use Oasis Respite to stop it. This is the only other card that's different, is that Kale was running 1 Remembrance that's not in this deck, and only 2 Oasis Respite. I just switched that Remembrance for a 3rd Oasis Respite here, but I think either version of that is totally fine. But yeah, that's the deck. I mean, it's my favorite deck. I've been playing it a bunch right now. I just love aggressing your opponent with huge attacks. I mean, coming in for 8 and then 9 and then 11 and then 9, just over and over again, massive attacks on your opponent. Feels really powerful. It feels really fun, and it disrupts your opponent. And, you know, the 3 aggro decks, 5, Viserai, and Briar, are all very powerful right now. So having a tool to combat them is great. It's an awesome thing to have. And I think this deck's really fun also, just as a Guardian player. Let's check out the price here. So we're going to click Buy Deck. Hopefully it lets us input everything and it doesn't throw anything way too high in there. Wow, that is way cheaper than I expected. So yeah, pretty budget deck actually. And if we click Optimize here, might be even lower than that. So $400 is really cheap for a top deck. I mean, I didn't cut any cards for budget here. Like I said, the 3 Command and Conquers are, you know, maybe optional. But I don't think they're any worse or better than the red disables. So yeah, wow, this deck is really cheap, which is awesome. And you can actually probably cut it even lower if you wanted, because instead of the Enlightened Strikes, you could probably run just some 3 yellow Zealous Belting. So instead of running these Enlightened Strikes, you could run yellow and red Zealous Belting to play against Prism. And then let's see what happens if we cut the 3 Enlightened Strikes. So basically $300 pre-tax for the whole deck. So really nice budget option if you're looking for a top meta deck. Nice to see the game getting cheaper for some of the top decks. I mean, this is $300, and yeah, I'm not cutting any corners. This is the full deck here. This is the exact list I would take to like the Pro Tour or something right now. So yeah, really love this deck. Love that it's affordable, but love how powerful it is. I mean, you're going to be beating a lot of aggro decks, and you really just need to kind of bob and weave and dodge the Prism decks. I don't think Kale played many, if any, Prism decks, which definitely helps his 10-0 pathway. But even if he played 1 Prism deck, you can, you know, take 1 loss in an event and still take the whole thing as long as it's not in the top 8. So I think the deck's really well positioned, and I love seeing my my favorite deck here, Bravo.